Melissa stared at her phone. Her bank balance flashed on the screen. Zeros. $45,000. Gone. All it took was one text, one click. A message that looked harmless, a simple alert asking her to verify her account. She clicked, entered her details, and by the time she realized the truth, it was already too late. When Melissa Carter opened that message, she thought she was protecting her money. Instead, she invited a stranger into her life. And what followed wasn't just a scam, it was the start of a digital nightmare that would dismantle her world, piece by piece. Melissa Carter was the definition of routine. A 27-year-old marketing assistant who found comfort in predictability. Every day, the same playlist, the same walk to the bus stop, the same coffee cup she washed and set by the sink each night. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. If anything, she trusted order more than people. Her mornings began at 6:30 a.m., always to the same gentle chime. Coffee first, news headlines second, then a scroll through her phone, notifications, emails, a few limited-time offers she always ignored. By 8 a.m., she was out the door, sneakers tracing the same route to the bus stop. The city passed by her window every morning, neon reflections, half-asleep faces, the hum of engines. But Melissa barely noticed. Her life was a rhythm, and that rhythm made her feel safe. She worked at a small marketing firm downtown, not glamorous, but steady. She liked steady. Her desk sat by a window, the morning light falling on color-coded sticky notes and neatly stacked folders. To her coworkers, she was dependable, the one who remembered birthdays, who stayed late without complaint. But few knew her beyond that polite smile. Outside the office, Melissa kept to herself. Dinner for one, crime thrillers stacked on her bedside table, phone on silent after 10 p.m. It wasn't loneliness, not exactly. It was control. Every Friday, without fail, Melissa moved a chunk of her paycheck into savings. She'd started doing it in college, $10 at first, then $50, then more. By the spring of 2021, her savings account had grown to nearly $45,000. Not a fortune, but to her it was everything she had built on her own. Security, stability, the proof that she was doing something right. Her parents lived 2 hours away, Greg and Elaine Carter. Kind, practical people. They'd raised her to be careful, to double-check every receipt, to trust but verify. And every Sunday night, Melissa called her mother, like clockwork. "How's work?" "Same as always." "Are you eating well?" "I am." "Are you happy?" A pause. "Yes, Mom." Even when she wasn't sure. Her younger brother, Jason, was the opposite. Spontaneous, unreliable, but charming enough to get away with it. He'd call at random hours asking for help paying off some overdue bill. Melissa always said yes. Quietly, without judgment. Family was family. In her own way, Melissa had everything she wanted. A job, an apartment, a balance she could watch grow month by month. But routine can make you predictable, and predictable can make you vulnerable. It began with small things, easy to ignore. A password reset email for an account she hadn't touched in years. A spam message that used her full name. A voicemail from an unknown number. Silence. Then a faint click. Melissa deleted it all without thinking. Everyone gets spam. Everyone gets wrong numbers. But late at night when her apartment fell quiet and the city noise faded, she sometimes caught herself glancing her phone, half expecting it to light up again. And sometimes it did. A flicker of something on the lock screen. A message preview she didn't remember opening. Then nothing. She told herself she was imagining things. That's what people like Melissa do. Rationalize the strange until it feels ordinary again.
But somewhere, someone had already started watching her, learning her routines, her patterns, her weaknesses. That was the first text, the one that changed everything. "Your bank account may have been compromised. Please verify your details to avoid suspension." The link looked official. Same logo, same color scheme. She clicked, entered her credentials, and pressed submit. The page reloaded. Nothing happened, so she closed the tab and went back to work. It was 12:47 p.m. on a Friday. By Monday morning, her balance would hit zero. Melissa sat at her desk staring at her computer screen. The hum of fluorescent lights above her, the quiet chatter of keyboards, the clinking of coffee cups, ordinary sounds that suddenly felt too sharp. It was Friday, March 12th, 2021. Lunch hour. She opened her banking app, a small comfort she indulged in every week. $500, ready to transfer into savings. Her ritual, her proof of control. But today, something caught her eye. Her balance wasn't right. $2,000 missing. Melissa blinked, refreshed the page. Her heart gave a small, confused jolt. She refreshed again. The number dropped. Another $250 gone. She froze. Refreshed again. Another withdrawal. Then another. Each tap of her thumb stole another piece of her savings, Each second tightened her chest a little more. By the time her screen froze, nearly $10,000 had vanished. She didn't even realize she'd stood up until her chair scraped against the floor. "Melissa?" her coworker called, startled. But Melissa didn't answer. She was already in the hallway, her hands shaking, dialing the bank's number with trembling fingers. "Thank you for calling Customer Fraud Services. This is Angela. How may I assist you?" Melissa's words stumbled over each other. My account. It's disappearing. My savings. I think I've been hacked. Please, it's draining. Ma'am, I'll need you to take a breath. Can you verify your full name and date of birth?" Melissa obeyed. "Thank you," Angela continued. A pause. "I'm seeing several recent transactions from your account. Online transfers, digital gift cards, crypto exchanges." Melissa's stomach dropped. "That's not me. I didn't..." "We're freezing the account immediately, but I have to be honest, Miss Carter. These withdrawals were authorized through your login credentials. You may have entered your information on a phishing site." The words blurred together. Phishing, authorized, credentials. All she could think about was that message. The one she clicked without thinking. A routine alert. The one that said, "Your account may have been compromised." She whispered, "I clicked the link." Silence. Then they already had you. Melissa hung up and stared at her screen. The cheerful wallpaper, a photo of her parents' backyard, sunlight on green grass, felt alien now. In its reflection, she saw her own face, pale, motionless. Her reflection blinked. She didn't.
Her hands trembled as she opened her laptop, checking every account she could think of. Email, credit cards, even her online grocery profile. Every password, every familiar login page. All of it suddenly looked dangerous. She deleted apps, changed passwords, but with every fix, another alert appeared. Suspicious activity detected. New login from unknown device. Her savings were gone. Her security was gone. Her world had cracked open in the span of a lunch break. That night, Melissa couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at her laptop, waiting for another notification to appear. She kept the lights low. The room felt safer that way. The glow of the screen was the only light. Cold, blue, unblinking. She checked her account again. Still zero. Then, a new email. "We've noticed unusual activity on your account. Same bank logo, same design." She didn't click this time. Instead, she pressed her hands against her face and tried not to cry. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. Then another. She turned it face down on the table. Silence. But then came the voicemail notification. She played it. No voice, just soft breathing. Then, the line went dead. Melissa froze, staring at her phone as if it were alive. The next morning, Melissa walked into the police station with a folder clutched to her chest. Screenshots, bank statements, frantic handwritten notes. At the front desk, a tired officer looked up from his screen. "I need to report a cybercrime," she said, voice barely above a whisper. He handed her a form. "Fill this out. Someone will get back to you." Melissa wanted to scream. Didn't they understand what had just happened? Her life, her future, stolen by a stranger she couldn't even see. But she filled out the form anyway, her handwriting uneven. And when she handed it back, the officer said, "We'll forward this to the cyber unit. You'll get a call if it matches any ongoing cases." A call. That's what they always said. 3 days later, the call came. "Ms. Carter, this is Detective Alan Reeves, Cyber Division. I've reviewed your report." His voice was steady, professional. He asked her to recount everything, when it started, what she clicked, what she saw. Reeves wasn't unkind, but his questions felt like needles. "Have you ever shared your login credentials?" "No." "Used public Wi-Fi?" "Sometimes." "Opened suspicious links before?" "Maybe once or twice." Melissa's throat tightened with every answer. She felt small, foolish even, but Reeves' tone softened. "It happens more often than you think," he said. "We'll trace the activity, but I won't lie to you. Recovery is rare in cases like this." Rare. The word lingered long after the call ended. That evening, as she reviewed her email inbox, she noticed something strange. Among the hundreds of alerts and password resets was one that didn't belong. An automated notification. A new device has been linked to your home Wi-Fi network. The timestamp? 3 days before her money disappeared, at 3:12 a.m. Melissa hadn't been awake. Someone had been inside her network. She stared at the notification for a long time, the air around her growing colder, heavier. Then, she whispered the thought that had been creeping in since it all began. What if they're still in here? 3 days had passed since the call from Detective Reeves, and Melissa's apartment felt different now, quieter. Every hum of her refrigerator, every flicker from her router light made her uneasy. She'd unplugged the smart speaker, covered her webcam, even turned off her phone's Bluetooth, but it didn't make her feel safer. When Reeves called again that morning, his voice was calm, professional, but it carried weight. "Ms. Carter, I want you to meet someone from our cyber unit. She specializes in digital infiltration cases." He gave her a name, Dr. Naomi Vickers, cybersecurity analyst. The meeting was set for noon at a quiet corner cafe downtown.
Melissa arrived early, clutching her laptop like it was a shield. Naomi was already there, mid-30s, sharp eyes behind thin glasses, the kind of person who noticed everything and said little. She gestured for Melissa to sit. "Detective Reeves filled me in," Naomi said. "You mentioned a device linked to your Wi-Fi?" Melissa nodded and showed her the email. Naomi's fingers moved fast over the laptop keyboard, pulling up logs, IP traces, timestamps. "See this?" she said, pointing to a line of code. "Whoever did this wasn't just guessing your passwords. They had direct access to your network, likely someone who's been inside your home or close enough to intercept your connection." Melissa's chest tightened. "Inside my home?" Naomi didn't answer right away. "Tell me, did anyone else have your Wi-Fi password?" Melissa thought for a moment. "My brother. He stayed here a few weeks ago. And maybe my neighbor, Claire. She helped me set up the router once." Naomi nodded, expression unreadable. "We'll start there, but there's something else," she said, scrolling down. "The first login came from an IP linked to a VPN, but then this." She zoomed in. "The next trace doesn't hide its location. It's from your office building." Melissa's stomach turned. "My office?" Naomi leaned back. "Yes, someone there accessed your bank portal at the exact time your funds were drained." That night, Melissa sat in her apartment again. Every shadow stretched longer than it should. She replayed every moment from work, every glance, every casual chat, every coworker who borrowed her charger or asked to use her Wi-Fi hotspot. One name echoed in her head. Brian, her coworker. Friendly, always helpful, the one who fixed her printer and joked about her boomer passwords. She remembered the day he asked to check her laptop when her browser froze. He'd smiled, taken it from her desk, typed something fast and handed it back. "All good," he'd said. She hadn't thought twice. The next morning, Melissa told Detective Reeves what Naomi found. He asked her to come into the station. Reeves sat across from her, flipping through a folder thick with printed logs. "We traced the activity through your office network," he said. "Naomi found evidence of a mirrored login, someone accessing your credentials through a keylogger." He paused. "Do you know what that is?" Melissa nodded weakly. "It records everything you type." Reeves' eyes softened. "Exactly. Whoever installed it had physical access to your device." Melissa's mind raced. She could see Brian again, leaning over her shoulder, laughing, tapping at her keys. Her pulse quickened. Reeves closed the file. "We'll need to confirm this with IT at your workplace. Naomi's already running a trace on the device IDs." By evening, Naomi called. "Melissa, we've got confirmation. The device that mirrored your laptop connected through your office router. The system name matches a registered employee device." Melissa whispered. "Who?" Naomi hesitated. "We can't release the name yet, but you should be careful. Don't let anyone at work know what's happening until Reeves clears it." The next day felt endless. Melissa sat at her desk, pretending to work. Every sound magnified, the tapping keyboards, the muted laughter down the hall. When Brian passed by and smiled, she froze. He leaned on her desk casually. "You okay? You look tired." His voice was friendly, familiar, warm, but something in his tone made her skin crawl. "Yeah," she managed. "Just didn't sleep much." He nodded, his smile staying just a moment too long. That evening, Reeves called again. "Melissa, we have a development. The IP you mentioned earlier, the one from your brother's house, it's real, but it's a diversion. The actual data trail points back to your office's internal network. Naomi's found the signature of the malware, same encryption Brian used for his freelance coding projects." Melissa's breath caught. "So it's him?" Reeves exhaled. "We can't confirm yet, but it's looking that way." Melissa hung up and stared at the wall. Her reflection in the dark window looked like a stranger. Hollow-eyed, still, trapped in glow. She whispered to herself, "He was right there." That night, Naomi sent her one last message. "Don't open any files or links from your office systems. We're moving fast." Melissa didn't reply. She just closed her laptop and sat in silence. Outside, rain began to fall against the glass. In the corner of her room, the router light blinked once, then twice, then went dark. The next morning, the world looked normal, but Melissa's mind wasn't. Her office was humming like always, printers running, phones ringing, the faint clack of keyboards. But to her, everything felt staged, like a calm before something inevitable. Detective Reeves had promised a call with an update, yet every second that passed without his voice felt like a countdown. By noon, an email popped up on her screen. No subject line, just one attachment. The sender's name was blocked, only random characters, symbols that meant nothing, but the preview showed one word: "Found you." Her throat tightened. Against every warning, she clicked. The file opened into a single photo, her apartment, taken through the window. The timestamp was last night. Her hands trembled as she slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. She scanned the office instinctively, eyes darting from desk to desk. Brian was there, chatting by the coffee machine, laughing like nothing existed outside his world. Within minutes, she was in the parking lot, calling Reeves. "He's watching me," she said, her voice shaking. "He was outside my window last night." Reeves' tone hardened. "Where are you now?" She told him, "Stay there. Do not go home. Naomi has traced the signal. We're on it." At the station, Naomi pulled up her laptop as soon as Melissa walked in. "He's not as clever as he thought," she said. "He left a digital fingerprint. The phono was sent through an encrypted tunnel, but the metadata, he forgot to scrub it." She turned the screen toward Melissa. "It came from your office Wi-Fi 5 minutes before you arrived this morning."
Melissa felt her chest collapse inward. He's here, right now. Reeves didn't waste time. Within an hour, 2 officers entered the office building quietly, while Naomi guided them over the phone, tracking every move. Melissa waited in the car outside, staring at the front doors through the rain-streaked windshield. Every passing minute stretched like hours. Then, a flash of movement, Reeves stepping out with 2 officers beside him, and between them, Brian. He wasn't resisting. His face looked almost calm, detached, like he'd been expecting this. When he glanced toward the parking lot, his eyes found her. He didn't smile, but something in his expression made her blood run cold, like this was all part of some twisted plan that went exactly as he'd wanted. At the station, Reeves explained what they'd found. Brian had installed a small device, barely the size of a coin, into the USB port on her office laptop weeks before the theft. It wasn't just recording keystrokes, it had remote access capabilities, letting him monitor her activity in real time. He'd set up duplicate sessions on her bank app, waited for her to log in, then funneled funds through a chain of digital wallets before transferring them into offshore accounts. "What about the photo?" she asked. Reeves hesitated. "He wasn't alone. He had help setting up surveillance near your building, possibly a hired contact, but we'll find them." Naomi added quietly, "His VPN logs show he'd been collecting more than money. He'd mirrored your personal files, messages, even your search history. It wasn't about theft anymore. It was obsession." Melissa couldn't process the words. Obsession. It explained the lingering glances, the subtle comments, the way he'd always seemed to know things she hadn't told anyone. She remembered once mentioning, offhand, how she hated thunderstorms. 2 days later, he'd shown up with an umbrella just in case. She thought it was kindness. Now she saw it for what it was. Control. Reeves continued. "He confessed partially, said he did it to prove how vulnerable people really are. But we found messages drafted on his laptop, never sent, talking about you like you were a character in his story." Melissa stared at the table, her reflection rippling faintly in the metal surface. For a moment, she didn't feel fear anymore. Just emptiness. "So that's it? He's going to prison, and I just move on?" Reeves sighed. "You recover, Melissa. You start again. The money can be traced and partly restored, but trust? That one takes time." That night, she returned home. The police had already swept her apartment, replaced her locks, cleared her devices. Still, she unplugged everything before lying down. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound outside made her eyes snap open. She'd see his face in the dark glass, that calm detachment that said he'd already written her into his narrative. Around midnight, her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Just one line. "He's gone, but I'm not." Her breath caught. She froze. Then another message followed, this time from Naomi. "Ignore any new texts. It's possible he automated messages through a scheduling bot. We're handling it." Melissa stared at the screen, then turned off the phone completely. The apartment fell into silence. She sat there in the dark, feeling the weight of what she'd survived. It wasn't just about losing money or privacy. It was the realization that in a world so connected, someone could step into your life, wear your identity, and make your reality their playground. Outside, dawn crept through the blinds. The sky lightened slowly, but inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was still watching. Weeks passed before Melissa could breathe without thinking of him. Her days felt mechanical. Wake, shower, work, repeat. But every routine step was now coated with suspicion. She no longer trusted the glow of her own screens. Every notification sounded like a threat. Every update, every email ping, every flicker of her Wi-Fi light drew her eyes. The world was too quiet, and silence had become its own kind of danger. Detective Reeves checked in weekly. Brian was in custody, awaiting trial. The stolen funds were slowly being recovered through international cooperation, though much of it was lost forever. "It's never just money," Reeves said on one of his calls. He wanted control. Melissa didn't reply. She already knew that. Naomi, the cybersecurity analyst, became her unintentional anchor through the weeks that followed. She guided her in rebuilding her digital walls, new hardware, encrypted accounts, offline backups. "You can't erase what happened," Naomi told her once, "but you can make sure it doesn't happen again." By late spring, life began to resemble something like normal. Melissa moved to a new apartment, changed her number, switched jobs. The city's noise became her comfort. Sirens, honking, footsteps. all proof that the world was alive and unpredictable, but at least it wasn't invisible. Then one evening, while unpacking boxes in her new place, she opened her laptop for the first time in weeks. She hadn't connected it to Wi-Fi yet. She just wanted to play some music offline while she worked. But when the desktop loaded, she froze. There was a new folder sitting there, unnamed, unclicked. The timestamp read, "Created yesterday." Her pulse quickened. She hadn't used this device since the move. She hesitated, then right-clicked to check its contents. Inside were 23 image files. The first few were ordinary, old screenshots, photos of documents, but then she scrolled further. Her hand stopped.
They were new. Photos of her new apartment, taken from outside. Melissa's heart began to hammer. She shut the laptop instantly and stepped back, hands shaking. She checked the locks, the windows, the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was silent. Her mind spun. Brian was in custody. Reeves had confirmed it. He couldn't have sent them. Unless someone else had the code. She grabbed her phone and called Naomi. No answer. Then Reeves, straight to voicemail. She left a message, her voice trembling. "Detective, it's Melissa. There's something you need to see. It's happening again." Minutes later, Naomi called back. "Stay calm," she said immediately. "Disconnect your laptop from power and don't touch anything else." Melissa did. "Is this a new device?" Naomi asked. "Yes, brand new. I bought it after I moved." Naomi exhaled sharply. "Okay, then this isn't about your machine anymore. It's your account. Someone mirrored your cloud login and synced files remotely. You're still connected through the same digital identity he cloned." Melissa's knees went weak. "You mean he's still there?" Naomi didn't answer directly. "He or someone he sold the access to. You need to shut down every account, every connection. Start fresh from zero." Later that night, the police came again. Reeves stood in her living room, his voice steady but grave. "Brian's laptop was seized," he said. "Our team found something we missed the first time. He built a backup script. Automated. It keeps replicating his surveillance files through different servers. He might not even be the one controlling it anymore." Melissa stared at him, her thoughts hollow. "So, it never ends?" Reeves looked at her with something like regret. "Technology doesn't forget. It just waits for the next person to wake it up." After they left, Melissa sat by the window, the city lights flickering below. Her reflection stared back, tired, wary, but alive. She opened a notebook and began to write, not for anyone else, but for herself. She wrote about trust, about how easily we hand our lives to screens, passwords, and invisible networks, about how one message, one click, can open the door to someone who never leaves. Months rolled by, but time didn't heal the way people said it would. Melissa had a new apartment, new locks, new passwords, a new version of herself, but some things clung to her like shadows. Trust, once second nature, had become a constant negotiation. Every text message, every unknown number, every verify your account email triggered a pulse of fear she couldn't quite silence. She wasn't paranoid. She was prepared. Her mornings were quieter now. No more playlists, no TV humming in the background, just the sound of her coffee maker and the steady rhythm of her breathing. She liked silence. It made her feel in control again. But sometimes, in that silence, her mind replayed the voice she heard in her voicemail, the distorted whisper that said, "We're not finished." She never deleted it. She couldn't. It was proof that what happened to her was real, that monsters didn't just live in dark alleys or behind ski masks. They lived in screens, in usernames, in the code beneath the things we trust most. Detective Reeves called every few weeks with updates. Brian's trial had concluded, guilty on all counts: cyberstalking, fraud, unlawful surveillance, attempted burglary, 20 years in prison. But even in victory, Reeves' voice carried a certain caution. "People like him don't work alone," he said once. "Sometimes they teach others what they know." Melissa asked if she was still in danger. Reeves paused, then said, "No more than anyone else online." That answer didn't comfort her.
Dr. Naomi Vickers became more than just her cybersecurity expert. She became her lifeline into understanding the psychology of control. They'd meet every few months, usually over black coffee and laptops. Naomi would share cases, patterns, stories of others who had lived through similar digital hauntings. "You're not alone in this," she said. "You were just early." Melissa learned how to build firewalls, use encryption keys, set up multi-layer authentication. But no software could protect her from what had been done to her sense of safety. You can patch systems, but not people. One night, unable to sleep, she opened a blank document and started typing. She didn't know why, maybe to let the story breathe outside her head. She wrote about how it began, with a simple text message. She wrote about the sound of her own breathing as she watched her money disappear, line by line, like her life was being erased in real time. She wrote about the detective, the expert, the betrayal. She wrote until dawn. A few weeks later, she posted it anonymously on a cybersecurity forum, a warning to others. It spread fast. Thousands of comments flooded in, people thanking her, others sharing similar stories. Victims of scams, stalkers, hackers. Some had lost money. Others had lost peace of mind. Many said her story saved them. That night, for the first time in a long time, Melissa felt something close to purpose. Her pain had become someone else's protection. She started volunteering with an online safety foundation, helping teach people how to spot red flags, how to protect their data, how to stay alert without living in fear. But fear, she learned, never fully disappears. It just changes form. One evening, she received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line was blank, inside a single image. Her old apartment, lit faintly from the hallway. The timestamp was from a year ago. Attached, a caption. "Did you ever change the locks?" Her stomach tightened. She wanted to delete it, to tell herself it was a cruel troll, a coincidence, but instead she forwarded it to Naomi and Reeves. Naomi replied within minutes. "We'll trace it. Don't respond." Reeves called a few hours later. His tone was firm but weary. "This came from an old phishing bot still running off one of Brian's cloned servers. It's not new. Just a ghost in the system." Melissa sat in silence after the call. A ghost in the system. The phrase echoed in her head. She stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker like signals from another world. Maybe that's all this was now. A haunting made of code and memory. Something that would never fully vanish, only fade and reappear when she least expected it. But this time, she wasn't scared. She was ready. Melissa Carter had lost her savings, her trust, and part of her peace, but she had found her strength. She learned that in the digital age, survival isn't just about firewalls and passwords. It's about awareness, resilience, knowing when to click and when to walk away. She closed her laptop, turned off her phone, and sat in the quiet glow of her lamp. Somewhere deep in the hum of technology, a faint echo of her story lived on, warning the next person, saving the next life. And maybe that was enough. If this story made you think twice before opening a message, then it's already done its job. But the next story might just keep you safe. Subscribe to Noct Stories before you become one. Melissa once thought of the internet as a lifeline, a place of connection, learning, convenience. Now she understood it for what it truly was, a reflection of humanity itself, capable of light, capable of darkness. Every click was a choice, and every choice a door. Months after Brian's arrest, her life was quieter. Her new job let her work remotely, and she'd built a daily rhythm that felt safe again. Mornings started with warm sunlight spilling through her curtains, soft music instead of headlines. But there were still moments, faint echoes, that reminded her how fragile safety could be. Sometimes she'd catch herself hovering over a suspicious link in her inbox, the cursor trembling before she hit delete. Sometimes her phone would buzz with a random number, and her pulse would quicken, even if it was just spam. Fear no longer ruled her life, but it whispered at its edges, reminding her what she'd survived. Her parents came to visit one weekend. They cooked dinner together, laughed about old stories, and for the first time, Melissa felt normal. Her mother reached across the table and said softly, "You look stronger now." Melissa smiled. "I feel stronger. Different maybe, but stronger." After they left, she sat by her window again, looking out at the skyline. Each light represented someone. Each screen, a life unfolding quietly, unseen. Somewhere out there, others were still falling into the same traps. Others were trusting too easily, clicking too quickly, believing that security came with convenience. That night, she opened her laptop again and began writing again, this time not as a victim, but as a voice. The piece was titled, "The Friend Request That Stole My Life." She poured every lesson she'd learned, the signs she missed, the mistakes she made, the truth she discovered too late. It wasn't about fear anymore. It was about awareness, empowerment. When she finished, she uploaded it to a growing platform dedicated to digital safety awareness. Within hours, it was shared thousands of times. People from across the world commented, thanking her for opening their eyes. A message stood out among the comments. It read, "I almost fell for one of those bank texts last week. Then I remembered your story. You saved me."
Melissa leaned back in her chair, tears welling in her eyes, not of sadness, but of relief. Her story had come full circle. What once was a nightmare had become a warning, a shield for someone else. Later that night, she sat on her bed, scrolling through her messages. One new notification blinked on her screen. A simple text. "Stay safe, Melissa." Her chest tightened. No sender, no number, just those two words. For a long moment, she stared at it, her mind balancing between logic and fear. It could have been anything. An automated bot, A system glitch, a leftover trace from an old contact. She exhaled slowly, locked her phone, and whispered to herself, "I am safe." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Rain began tapping softly against her window, steady and rhythmic. A reminder that life moves forward, no matter how dark the storm once was. Melissa turned off the lights, lay back, and let the sound of the rain drown out the noise of the past. Her eyes drifted shut, and for the first time in a long time, she dreamed, not of loss or fear, but of peace. Because in the end, Melissa Carter wasn't just a victim of cybercrime. She was proof. Proof that even in a world built on invisible connections, human strength, awareness, and resilience could still shine brighter than any screen. And as the final words of her next post would soon read, trust carefully, click wisely, because the scariest monsters don't always knock. Sometimes they just send a link. What happened to Melissa wasn't rare. Every year, millions fall for scams that start the same way: a text, an email, a familiar name. Some lose their savings, some lose their peace of mind, and a few never speak about it again. But stories like hers remind us why we need to, because the moment we stop talking about it, the scammers win. So before you close this video, check your inbox, check your settings, and check your instincts. The next victim doesn't have to be you. If this story opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because awareness spreads faster than fear, and sometimes one shared story can stop the next tragedy before it begins. Subscribe to Noct Stories, where real warnings meet real chills. The next story might just save you or someone you love.